I think that you're already seeing it in the 2022 class with the number of 4 stars. I think it's a matter of time, and success begets success. I mean, you got to keep building it. And the 5 stars are hard to get. I mean, people down in Florida, in my old neck of the woods, are knocking Dan Mullen with his inability to get 5 star recruits. I mean, it's not an easy thing, but we'll see how Tom Allen. I think Tom Allen has that kind of personality, and the staff has that kind of personality where they can get guys in the room, and then don't forget NIL as well. That could be a factor too. Those opportunities from within the state in terms of attracting talent.
Yeah, Ross Bunnell mentions that Miami's quarterback becomes the first to sign an NIL deal with a professional team. It's the NHL, National Hockey League's Florida Panthers, which I haven't seen what that is, but that's kind of odd. But in talking to Tom Allen, Chronic, that has not been a big deal. That has not been a topic of conversation with parents. I think unless you're an elite quarterback or something, that's continuing not going to be the big deal. Getting to the best school, the best education, playing at the best place in football right now is still the thing. And once this newness gets past and things calm down a little bit, because it's all brand new and everybody's racing to different things. But I don't see the NIL being a gigantic deal for Indiana right now, at least in football.
I think it's really interesting as you look at that particular intersection, because you know what I do professionally. We've had Michael Penix's representatives actually reach out to us and just gauge interest in some sort of an NIL engagement with him. And while quite frankly, I thought the rates were pretty reasonable, at the end of the day, businesses look at it and go, okay, exactly how would this benefit us? To what end? How would we use this? And it's not as I guess it's not as groundbreaking as some would think. Kind of at the local level, as far as how is NIL is going to impact IU's athletes. Now you look at other schools where they've got boosters who have been for years cutting 6-figure checks,
yes,
and funneling money. Yes, absolutely. Usually that's coming from some business derived income. Now they get to be on camera handing that player the check with their name all over it. Yes, that's just going to bring some of that activity out into the open.
That's exactly what I agree with you. I agree with you 1,000%, Chronic. It's the guys that have been doing that behind the scenes, the happies from blue chips who want to be known as the guy. But they couldn't be because it was illegal. Now they can be. Those guys that own whatever business they own, if they can stand out and do that, I think you're going to see some of that.
I mean, I work for a booster, a pretty big booster, as a matter of fact. And the group looks at it and says, we appreciate the offer, but we're going to pass. We're going to invest that money in digital and other things that are already proven, and we know how that works and what the return is. It's fascinating to me, though, because at some point, if you're going to compete at the 5-star level, you're going to need some of those guys somewhere to step forward, because ultimately that's going to be what probably tips the scales for a lot of those decisions when there's that kind of cash on the table, and you've got a guy who's maybe looking at a 1-2 year stop at most before he moves on to the next opportunity. I do see a significant distance before Indiana gets there right now as it relates to the NIL landscape. But that's not to say it's not there already. I mean, this is a massive university with an enormous alumni base, people in business all over the world. You see the university getting checks, just astronomical figures for all sorts of different endeavors. Eventually, somebody's going to step up and be like, that's our quarterback, and I just bought him for you. I just don't know who that is right now or when that day comes. But that's ultimately probably going to be one of the big differences between Indiana of now and Indiana landing 5 stars.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be different in basketball, though, just because it's a basketball state and that's where you'll get, I think, more your bang for your buck locally?
Yes, just because of the brand recognition, just because of some of the loyalties. I mean, you look at the guys who are going to be writing those checks. I mean, you're talking basically about the Fred Glasses of this world, the guys who are just adore that certain period and that mythology of what Indiana basketball should be. At the end of the day, though, those guys are also Alumni Association, IMEN, whatever. football is really what's going to move the needle for the university or the department. So at some point, they've kind of got to figure that out. Yes, we can always be a basketball school, but from a resource standpoint, especially NIL resource standpoint, you got to figure out a way to become big football fans, because that's where the big money comes into the accounts.
NIL versus LOI. That's something you'll be seeing, I'm sure. And that's the NIL deal versus letter of intent. Are we going to start seeing the recruiting battle? Here you go. If there's a kid, all right, Drake Bowling, I'm just going to use him as an example. You look at, he's got Auburn, Clemson, Indiana, LSU, Michigan, among others in his finals, Notre Dame. This kid wants to play football and baseball. And I'm not saying this is happening or has happened, but here's where you have a situation where a business, and there's like, man, we could use this kid, man, both baseball and football. We could really use him. Well, and a booster comes in and says, all right, we need to make this kid a deal. And you give him an NIL deal before he even signs a letter of intent to go to a school. That's what I'm talking. That's getting into that happy, the guy from Blue Chips, the forget the $100 handshakes. This is a $100,000 contract deal or whatever. That's where I see this becoming a problem.
Well, and there's so much of it right now, and it has been for some time. I mean, I know families that have relocated because of Indiana high school girls basketball recruiting. I mean, there's so many benefits that can be available to help sway decisions that you can agree upon now. And yes, they prohibit pay for play type situations, but I mean, let's be realistic here. Who knows what what's at the end of the rabbit hole? There's absolutely going to be what you described very much front and center. And that's probably the next arms race in terms of landing that elite level talent, and all the way down to just rotation players. How are you packaging your NIL? How are you packaging your total experience in order to obtain these commitments? Or, as you mentioned, letters of intent, because I think as this becomes a little more professional, a little above board, I think that's probably another ramification, is you're going to see less kids signing binding documents until the absolute last moment possible, just to protect their business interests.